What if the world called you worthless, but the only man who mattered saw something no one else ever bothered to look for? The winter wind pressed against the colder homestead like a living thing, rattling loose boards and carrying the sharp scent of burned wood. Inside the dim cabin, Tessa Calder sat close to the dying fire, her thin fingers slowly pulling a needle through a torn piece of cloth. The glow of the embers cast her face in soft orange light, showing hollow cheeks and tired eyes that once held hope. Now they held only quiet surrender. Behind her, the floorboards creaked under the heavy boots of her stepbrother. Abel Marsh moved with the slow swagger of a man who believed he owned everything he touched. His tall frame cast a long shadow across the room, and his voice cut through the stillness like a cold blade. "You're no good to anyone here, Tessa," he said. "Ma's gone, and all you've done is sit and eat food you didn't earn." Tessa didn't look up. She had heard these words too many times. They clung to her like frost. "I do what I can," she whispered. "I keep the fire strong. You're useless," Abel snapped. "A burden, can't even keep a man interested." Her fingers froze. The rumor had spread fast 2 years back after her failed engagement. The man who once claimed he loved her announced to everyone that she couldn't give a husband children. The lie stuck, and after that, she had become nothing more than a ghost walking through her own home. Abel poured himself a glass of whiskey and turned toward her, smugness twisting his mouth. "There's a trapper up north," he said, "Rowan Creed. Paid a trader in goods for help, someone to cook and keep his place clean." Tessa's needle stopped in midair. "Someone? That someone is you." She stared at him, confused. "You mean hired help?" Abel took a slow drink, letting the burn show in his eyes. "I mean sold, Tessa." The room tipped, her breath caught. "Abel, you can't." "I already did," he grinned, thin and sharp. "You should be grateful. A man willing to take you in? You ain't likely to get another chance." Her heart tightened like it was being squeezed. She stood shakily, placing her sewing aside. "You're my brother by name only. One day you'll answer for this." Abel laughed. "Tomorrow you're gone. That's all that matters." That night, Tessa didn't sleep. She sat by the fire, watching the last flames fade into embers. Memories of her mother drifted through her mind. The gentle hum of bedtime songs. The promise that kindness always found its way back. Tessa pressed a hand to her heart. "If there's any mercy left in this world," she whispered, "let it find me." Morning came gray and cold. The trader arrived, a thick-bearded man named Hodge, with tired eyes and a wagon full of goods. He barely looked at her as Abel handed him a note and a small bag of coin. "She's quiet," Abel said. "Does her chores. Don't expect her to talk much." Hodge shrugged. "Ain't my business what Creed wants her for. Mountain's no place for a lady, though." Abel chuckled. "She ain't much of one." Tessa held her small bundle of belongings close as she climbed into the wagon. The cold air stung her cheeks. Before she realized it, the homestead was shrinking behind her, the place she'd been trapped in for years fading into the frozen horizon. They traveled for days. The road turned rough, winding through forests and icy hills. Hodge didn't talk much, though once he handed her dried meat when she coughed. "Rowan Creed lost family in a landslide," he muttered. "Keeps to himself. Folks say he's half ghost now." Tessa's hands tightened around her shawl. She didn't know if that made things better or worse. On the third day, they reached the foothills. Snow pressed heavy on the pines, and the sky hung low. Hodge stopped near a narrow trail leading into the trees. "This is as far as I go," he said, nodding toward the path. "His cabin's up there. He'll meet you soon." "You're leaving me here?" she whispered. He frowned, almost with pity. "You'll be fine. He's a fair man." Before she could respond, he turned the wagon around and vanished down the road. The silence that followed felt enormous. Tessa took a shaky breath and looked up the steep trail. Snow crunched under her boots as she walked. A soft echo rang through the forest, the steady chop of an axe. She followed the sound until a figure appeared through the falling snow. Rowan Creed was taller than she imagined, with broad shoulders wrapped in a heavy fur coat. Snow clung to his beard, and he held an axe loosely at his side. His eyes were sharp but tired, like someone who had lived through too many storms. He stopped when he saw her. "You lost, miss." "You're Mr. Creed?" she asked, voice unsteady. He nodded. "I am." She held out the note Abel had sent. Rowan opened it and read quietly. His jaw tightened. "He said he was bringing supplies," Rowan muttered. "Not," his eyes flicked up, "not a woman." Tessa felt heat rush to her face despite the cold. "I had no say in it." For a moment, Rowan just stood there, snow melting slowly in his hair. Then he let out a heavy breath. "You'd best come inside." "No sense freezing out here." Tessa hesitated. "You're not sending me back?" He looked toward the darkening sky. "No roads safe tonight. We'll talk in the morning." Quote, she followed him along a narrow path, the trees opening to reveal a small cabin glowing with warm light. For the first time in years, someone had offered her shelter without hatred or demand. She didn't know it yet, but this single cold night was about to change everything: her worth, her future, and her heart. What if the first place that ever felt safe was a stranger's cabin deep in the mountains? Dawn broke quiet and pale over Rowan Creed's homestead. The first light touched the snow outside and slipped through the cracks of the shutters, brushing Tessa's face as she woke on the small cot beside the hearth. For a moment, she forgot where she was. The blanket over her felt warm. The air smelled of cedar and smoke, not dust and bitterness. Her body eased before her mind caught up. Then she heard the steady chop of an axe outside. Tessa sat up, pulling the blanket closer. She winced from the soreness of the long journey but pushed herself to her feet. The cabin around her was simple and sturdy. Log walls, a stone fireplace, shelves holding jars and tools. Everything had a place. Everything was clean. Everything was made to last. She stepped outside, the cold biting her cheeks. Rowan stood near the woodpile, splitting logs with smooth, practiced swings. His breath curled into the air. "You're awake," he said, without looking at her. "Yes, sir," she said softly. "I wanted to thank you for letting me stay." Rowan set another log on the block. "I wouldn't leave a stray pup out in a storm." A faint smile touched her lips. "I suppose I'm the pup." He paused mid-swing and looked at her, eyebrows raised. "I didn't mean offense." "I know," she said. "It's all right." He studied her for a moment, then nodded toward the woodpile. "If you're set on staying a few days, you may as well earn your keep. Can you stack wood?" "Yes, sir." Her limbs were weak, her fingers stiff from the cold, but she worked carefully. Rowan said nothing, yet he watched her with quiet attention. When her hands began to shake, he walked over and handed her a tin cup of warm coffee. "Sit," he said. "You'll make yourself sick." Quote, Tessa sat on the porch step, steam warming her face. "I can cook if you'd like," she said. "It's what I'm best at." Rowan gave her a sideways look. "Cook? So, keep things clean. That why your family sold you?" She dropped her gaze. "They said I was broken. Said no man would want a wife who couldn't give him children." Rowan's jaw tightened. "A man doesn't trade blood for coin unless he has none in his heart." She swallowed hard. "He told me it was for my own good." He didn't answer. The wind filled the space between them. That night, after a quiet supper, Rowan sat by the fire, mending a strap on his rifle. Tessa sewed a tear in one of his shirts, careful and steady. The soft scrape of her needle filled the warm room. "You've got a good hand," Rowan said. "My mother taught me," Tessa replied. "She always said a woman should know how to mend what's torn." He looked into the fire. "Sounds like she was wise." "She was. I think she'd like it here." He huffed a small laugh. "Most folks can't stand the mountains. Too lonely." She met his eyes. "Lonely feels familiar." Quote, Their gazes held. The fire popped softly. Something warm moved in Rowan's expression, something he quickly looked away from. Days formed a new rhythm. Tessa learned how to haul water from the creek. Rowan taught her how to split kindling without hurting herself. She burnt her hand once, trying to move a kettle. Rowan crossed the cabin in 2 strides, his movements sharp but gentle as he took her wrist and dipped her hand in cool water. "You should have called me," he said. "I didn't want to bother you." His eyes softened. "Tessa, I don't mind being bothered." Her breath caught. He had never said her name before. That night she watched him as he cleaned his rifle. The lamplight traced the scar near his temple and the steady lines of his face. She spoke without thinking. "Why do you live up here alone?" Rowan paused, setting the rifle aside. "I had a wife once. Lost her the first winter. No doctor within 50 miles. "I'm sorry," Tessa whispered. "Wasn't your fault," he murmured. "But it taught me something." "What?" "That love doesn't always keep you alive. Sometimes it just gives you something worth missing." Tessa's voice was soft. "Still, you kept living." He shrugged. "Didn't have much choice. You learned to live for the small things. Quiet nights, clean air, dry wood." She smiled faintly. "And now you've got company." Rowan's eyes lingered on her. "Yeah, guess I do." As the snow deepened, so did their quiet bond. She hummed while she worked. Rowan found himself pausing to listen. When she laughed, a soft, shy sound, he watched her with a kind of wonder. One night, she stepped outside to gather water and nearly slipped on the icy ground. Rowan caught her by the arm. "You'll wear yourself out," he said. "I can manage," she replied. He looked down at her, her cheeks pink from the cold. "I don't doubt that." She thought he might touch her cheek, but he stepped back, jaw tight, as if trying to keep himself in check. By the end of the second week, Tessa no longer moved like someone expecting to be struck or scolded. She no longer avoided Rowan's gaze. She laughed more, ate without fear, slept without flinching, and Rowan watched her quietly every night, wondering how a woman so gentle had survived a world so cruel. Spring crept slowly across the mountain. The snow melted in thin rivers. Birds returned. The valley breathed again, but peace never lasts long on the frontier. One morning, as Tessa hung washed clothes on the line, Rowan came up the trail from checking traps. He stopped, watching her as sunlight caught her hair. "You've done good here," he said, "brought warmth back to this place." Tessa smiled shyly. "I'm glad it helps." Before he could say more, a low rumble of hoofbeats echoed through the trees. Rowan stiffened, eyes narrowing toward the ridge. Someone was coming. A rider broke through the trees. Dusty coat, hard eyes, a cruel smirk. Tessa's breath stopped. It was Abel Marsh. Rowan stepped in front of her, rifle in hand. The storm between them had been waiting a long time. What if the person who once threw you away came back to claim what he thought he still owned? The horse stopped a few feet from Rowan's cabin, its breath steaming in the cool mountain air. Abel Marsh sat tall in the saddle, a cruel grin spreading across his face as he looked from Rowan to Tessa like they were nothing more than misplaced property. "Well, well," Abel said, sliding off his horse. "Ain't this something? My little stepsister hiding away with a mountain stray." Rowan shifted his stance, his rifle resting across his forearm. He didn't aim it, but he didn't lower it either. "She's not yours to claim," Rowan said. Abel chuckled, stepping forward with the swagger of a man who believed the world bent for him. "She was sold with my hand. That means she's mine to take back." Tessa moved from behind Rowan, her voice steady. "I'm not yours. Not now. Not ever." Abel's smirk flickered. "You've grown bold, but don't forget where you came from. You think you belong here, in the hills, with him?" "I belong where I'm treated like a human," she said. Abel's eyes darkened. "You think this mountain man gives a damn about you? You think he wants a broken woman? A barren one?" He snorted. "You're a dead end. That ain't ever gonna change." Quote, Tessa flinched but didn't step back. Rowan did. He stepped forward so fast, Abel blinked. "Say one more word against her," Rowan said quietly, "and you won't be riding out of here." Abel scoffed. You think you can scare me, Creed? I've dealt with men tougher than you. Maybe, Rowan replied, but none was something worth protecting. Abel's jaw twitched. He eyed the rifle. He eyed Rowan's stance. And for the first time, doubt crept into his expression. But pride pushed him forward. I came to collect what's mine, he said. You came for nothing, Rowan answered, because she's not going anywhere. Abel spat in the dirt, but the bravado was cracking. This ain't finished. It is, Rowan said. Abel swung himself back onto his horse, his pride wounded deeper than he'd admit. He gave Tessa one last glare, a stare meant to intimidate, but she didn't look away. Not this time. Not ever again. He kicked his horse and rode off, disappearing into the trees. For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Then Rowan turned to Tessa. You all right? He asked softly. She took a shaky breath. Yes, because you stood with me. Rowan touched her cheek gently, his thumb brushing a stray tear. You stood on your own today. I'm proud of you. Weeks passed. Spring arrived in full bloom. The valley turned green and the river thawed. Rowan and Tessa fell into an easy rhythm, planting, repairing the cabin, tending the small garden they made together. But one morning, Tessa bent to lift a bucket of water from the creek and felt dizzy. The world swayed. She blinked, trying to steady herself, but her knees buckled. Rowan caught her before she hit the ground. Tessa, he said urgently, lifting her into his arms. You fainted. Again. I'm fine, she whispered. No, you're not. He carried her back to the cabin, despite her weak protests. Later, he saddled his mule and rode down the mountain to fetch Dr. Lydia Voss, the frontier physician. She arrived by evening, calm and steady as she examined Tessa. Rowan paced outside like a man waiting for a verdict. When the door finally opened, Dr. Voss stepped out with a small, knowing smile. Well, she said, folding her hands, looks like congratulations are in order. Rowan blinked. For what? Tessa's expecting, the doctor said. Healthy and strong. Seems whatever people said about her was wrong. Rowan felt the breath leave his chest. For a moment he couldn't move, couldn't speak. Then warmth filled his eyes. Thank you, he whispered. Dr. Voss nodded. Take care of her. She's been through more than enough. I will, Rowan promised. Inside, Tessa sat by the fire, her hands trembling, eyes wide with disbelief. Rowan knelt in front of her. Tessa, he said softly, you're carrying our child. Tears slipped down her cheeks, but they said I couldn't. They said a lot of things, Rowan murmured, taking her hands, none of them true. Her voice cracked. Rowan, do you think I'll be a good mother? He smiled gently. You've already healed this cabin. You healed me. You'll be more than a good mother. The months that followed were the happiest she had ever known. Rowan built a cradle by hand, carving small mountain flowers along the edges. Tessa tended a little garden, her belly growing round beneath her apron. The cabin filled with warmth and laughter, with things she never knew she deserved. When the baby finally came, a girl with dark curls and a strong cry, Dry Voss placed her gently into Tessa's arms. She's perfect, the doctor said. Strong like her mother. Rowan stood beside them, eyes shining. She's everything, he whispered. Tessa looked up at him, her heart full. They sold me for being useless, she said softly. Look at me now. Rowan cupped her face, his thumb brushing her tears. They sold you for nothing, Tessa Calder, he said. But to me, you were always priceless. Outside, the mountains rose tall and steady. The wind carried the fresh scent of pine, and in the little cabin on the ridge, the life she'd been denied for so long finally bloomed, warm, whole, and real. Once, she was thrown away by those who never saw her worth. But in Rowan Creed's arms, and in their daughter's soft breath, she found the truth. She had never been broken. She had only been waiting to be loved.